All right, my friends, Google Motorola Nexus 6 honest review. This is going to be a fanboy-free look at my likes, my dislikes, the good, the bad, and the ugly of this brand new 6-inch phablet from the guys at Motorola and Google, so stay tuned. All right, Nexus 6, we'll look here at the box real quick. Reminds me a lot of the Apple box with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. We've got plain cardboard with an embossed logo here. Very, very similar. Jumping right in, this is a beast of a phone. It is huge. It is a phablet. There is no denying that. 6 inches in screen size, weighs I think a whopping 184 grams. It's got its heft to it. It does feel large in your hand. I'm going to talk a little bit about specs, which I don't normally do, but only because this phone is a powerhouse. It is priced at $650, unlocked off contract for the 32 gig model, $699 for the 64 gig model in the United States. That is a very, very different business model from the previous generation of Nexus, which we have here. Nexus 5 was $350 unlocked and off contract. So that's a big, big difference compared to what we normally have going on here with the Nexus line. 5.96-inch AMOLED display, bringing in a quad HD resolution of 493 pixels per inch. Incredibly impressive screen. The screen is one of the nicest parts about this phone. Very, 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 very cool looking display. It's AMOLED technology. We have a 13 megapixel rear facing camera here with dual LED flash, f2 aperture that does do 4K video recording at 30 frames per second. 2 megapixel front facing camera. We have wireless charging built in with a 3220 milliamp hour battery. Very, very high capacity battery. The other nice thing about this phone is it does have a quad core Snapdragon 805. Yep. And it's clocked at 2.7 gigahertz. And those numbers to me don't really mean anything because performance is really related to the software, not necessarily the hardware. But it does have top of the line hardware, and it is a really, really slick and fast device. And so when you first pick up this device or first look at it, the thing you notice most is the sheer size of it. I mean, this thing is gigantic. We have a 6-inch Nexus 6 right here, followed by a 5-inch Nexus 5 here, followed by a 4.7-inch iPhone 6. And you can sort of all see their respective sizes here. The Nexus 6 is by far the biggest out of all three of these, and also the thickest and also the heaviest. And so, you know, if you're considering the Nexus 6, you have to realize that this is not a phone for one-handed use. This is a two-handed use phone, or phablet or tablet, depending on what you're going to do with this guy. If you really plan on using this guy for everyday use and keeping it in your pocket, you're going to have to consider how really huge and gigantic this is. I have 7.2-inch hands, measured from the tip of my middle finger all the way down to the crease of my wrist. The average male hand is 7.4 inches, so I'm just a hair shy of average size. And this phone cannot be used in one hand by me. I have to use this phone in two hands, or run some sort of software tweak that allows me to customize the launcher so I can reach everything with my thumb. So point being, this phone is going to have to be used in two hands, so you really have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about purchasing this device. As we've seen on other two-handed devices like the iPhone 6 Plus, which has a reachability mode where you can double tap the home button and the screen shrinks, allowing you to use one-handed operation, or the Galaxy Note series with a stylus that allows you to use not necessarily one-handed operation, but an additional component to the operating system. This has vanilla stock Android on it with no user tweaks at all for one-handed use. So this is basically a two-handed device, or a very, very difficult stretch to reach certain aspects of the screen with one-handed use. So let's talk about what's great about this phone. Well, first of all, Motorola and Google have really, I think, done a great job on the build of this guy. It does not feel creaky or cheap or thin, or, you know, Galaxies have that creak and crunch. You know, the LG Nexus 5 has this sort of plastic unibody, but it kind of feels hollow. I wouldn't call this flimsy by any means, but the Motorola Nexus 6 feels solid. I don't think it weighs too much. I'd call it heavy and bulky, sure, but the rounded sort of edge on the back fits your hand really, really well. The device surprisingly doesn't feel overly large. I mean, yes, you need two hands to operate it, but when you grab it and hold it, it actually feels really well. I mean, it fits my hand really well. It has to do with the curve. It has to do with the placement of the dimple for your index finger. I've really grown accustomed to using this phone over the past few days, and I really actually like the build quality. I like the design. I think they've done a great job with it. I think that it feels solid. It feels definitely like a blown up, you know, 2014 Moto X. but it doesn't sort of have the same feel when you use it because it's so much incredibly bigger. You know, the only thing I would say about the design that I'm not a huge fan of is that the power and volume buttons are awfully close together here on the right side of the phone, and you frequently end up hitting one or both of them when you don't mean to, because they've been placed in such close proximity to one another. Other great things about the design, well, obviously the 6-inch AMOLED display. Super awesome colors, very, very nice to read, great viewing angles. While I do like the AMOLED display on this phone, I don't think it's as good as the AMOLED displays in the Galaxy series. I also don't really like this compared to IPS displays when you put them side by side with phones like the iPhone 6 or the Nexus 5, or some of the other top-of-the-line phones out there from HTC that use IPS displays. I actually like that the color and the sharpness and the quality of IPS over this AMOLED display. People also have been complaining about screen burn-in on this phone, which is a really, really big problem, as well as a pink hue at the lowest brightness settings. And so I think, when you turn this brightness all the way down and you're in an extreme low light environment, while it does do its best to save energy by turning the screen at its maximum sort of low-end brightness, you do get a very, very pink hue on the display. And so it's a little bit strange to see that pink hue on your phone when you're trying to look at stuff in extreme low light. Speakers on this phone are top-notch. You get dual front-facing stereo speakers. The music projects directly at the user, so when you hold it in your hand, you get that great stereo sound that and it's separated far apart from each other, so it sounds really, really awesome in your hand. I love the sound quality of this phone. Qi-enabled wireless charging is a great feature to have, as well as a standard micro USB with the included turbocharger, so you can plug this guy in for a few minutes and get a bunch of hours of use out of it without having to wait around for your phone to charge. Awesome feature. We see that as well in the Droid Turbo. Otherwise, this is basically the design of the Moto X 2014. So if you've seen a Moto X, it's a Moto X on steroids. But I do like the way this phone fits better than the Moto X does. I just think that for some reason, this 6-inch build fits and feels better than the Moto X 2014. It has to do with the placement of this nub, and it has to do with just the overall fit, finish, and size of the device. 13 megapixel camera is fast. The image quality is great. Again, optically image stabilized, really, really quick design to shoot. Software works great. The camera API in Android 5 is fantastic. The quality indoors in low light is really good. Quality outdoors in in bright light is great. No complaints from me about the camera, and that you'd usually see that's one of the big things I like to complain about here, especially with these guys from Motorola, is that the indoor light camera shots are not very good. And whatever they've done with the software or hardware or both inside this guy, even compared to the Moto X 2014, has really, really changed the game here for this camera. I think that the camera in this phone is one of the very, very many strong suites of owning this device. Battery life on the phone has been impressive. You can see here that we have a screen on time. You can see my use over the last 2 days. Great overall use. The screen at 35% using most of the battery. My screen on time was actually only about 4.5 hours. And so when you compare metrics, I think the screen on time is what most people consider to be sort of the most the bottom line in terms of what constitutes a good battery. And at 4.5 hours, that's impressive statistics, but we've definitely seen better with things like the OnePlus One and the Droid Turbo. So while the battery in this guy is great, and the turbocharging features are great, wireless charging features are great, it is still maybe an average use for the new smartphones that are coming out here 2014, 2015. Software-wise, this phone is running Android 5 or Android L Lollipop. Very, very smooth, very fast, no hiccups, no issues, no problems, just beautiful beautiful software on a beautiful device. This is probably, along with my Nexus 5, one of the very few phones that has no instance of lag at all anywhere in the operating system. Everything launches quickly, everything is smooth, everything is like butter. Android has finally nailed the lag problem that you see on a lot of these other phones, top-of-the-line phones even, Galaxy S5, Droid Turbo, Sony, Xperia, they all have lag. The Nexus series is, to me, the only devices on the market right now that don't have any lag, and it's great to finally see that happen. Other software sort of inconsistencies and things that are a little weird, it's great that Android has sort of evolved into this material design, sort of clean interface with, stock look and feel of Android. One thing that I don't really understand and like is that you get all these random sort of apps that you don't necessarily want or need with the built-in software. Like, I don't need an email app and a Gmail app, right? Like, I just need one. Just give me Google email, you know, or Gmail rather, not the email app. I don't need two. And so I think the way that, you know, if I had it my way, in a perfect world, you'd get a phone that has only the Play Store. That's the only thing you get, is the Play Store, right? You click on the Play Store. When you sign into the phone, it downloads your old apps from your old phone. You can go in, you can, you know, download any of the Google apps. You can download any app you want, any app for the camera, any app for your calendar, any app for your email. You know, the only app that you really and truly need on this phone is the Play Store and maybe the phone app. But even this, some people like to use, you know, Hangouts and the Google Voice dialer and don't want to use the built-in phone. They want to call over Wi-Fi and stuff. And so, you know, I would like to see a world where we only have the Play Store with no skins. You know, you can download your own skins later, your own themes, your own customization. Basically, stock hardware, stock software with one app, Play Store access. Boom! All the Android geeks like myself can get out and, you know, have a field day with customizing their phone exactly how they want to. But anyway, I'm going to end my little rant there about Android software. Point of that is, the software on Android 5 is fantastic. It's smooth, it's fast, it's no laggy at all, no jitters, no issues. Overall, very, very smooth, very nice. The other cool feature that you see on this phone, similar to the Moto X 2014, is you get the AMOLED notification right there when you pick up the device. It doesn't have the front-facing camera, so you can't do any of that hand-wavy, gimmicky crap. But when you pick up the device, since it does have the AMOLED screen, it does give you that sort of instant notifications on the home screen, or excuse me, the lock screen there, that you can pick up and see, and then, you know, access either just, you know, don't press anything and they go away, or you can slide over and get access to whatever notification is there. If you are familiar with how the Moto X 2014 works with the suite of Motorola software in it, where you have the voice controls and the lock screen and the other Moto Assist features, it leaves you wondering why those aren't included on the Nexus. And so this is another little rant against the Nexus 6 and Motorola and Google in general. You know, why don't we have that software on here? Is it because it's a stock Android device and they just didn't include it? Because the Moto X has it, and it's a Moto, and it looks and feels just like this, so it's just kind of weird, you know. Maybe we should be able to download and install that, but you can't. So not without, you know, root and custom ROMs and custom features. But it's frustrating because that's a great feature to have, and if you've ever used that feature on the Motorola Moto X, where you have complete hands-off operation, where you can say, "Okay, Google," and the phone picks you up. You know, you don't have to touch it. You don't have to be at the lock screen. You don't have to unlock the device and then say, "Okay, Google," you know, just like that. It's all done hands-free. And so it's frustrating that you have basically the same phone with the same software, with the same hardware, but it doesn't have those features. And it's annoying and stupid, and they should change that and either let you install it or take it off, put it on there and let you take it off. But the fact that you don't have access to it is pretty frustrating, especially when this is a top-of-the-line $650 phone, phablet, whatever. Anyway, get it together, Google and Motorola. Make us happy. So what are my final thoughts on this device? They're kind of twofold. And the first is that, you know, I came into this review thinking, or excuse me, into the sort of testing of this device, thinking that I wasn't going to like it. You know, I was angry that it was $650. I was angry that it was 6 inches. I was angry that it was made by Motorola. And I'm actually sort of left, you know, thinking that I end up liking it more than I thought I was going to. And because these are honest reviews and there's no bias and fanboyism here, and I don't have an allegiance to one manufacturer or one company or any of that crap, I can honestly tell you guys that I really, really like this phone. And I've always been a sort of proponent, or, you know, stood on my soapbox and said I'm tired of phones that are this big and I want phones that are smaller. And while I do still hold that true, and while I do still think that I personally prefer a 5-inch or 5.2-inch device, or 4.7-inch device, you know, somewhere in that 5-inch mark, this phone is incredibly usable and incredibly enjoyable with its 6-inch screen. Now, that is mostly me sitting around the house and using this while I sort of sit and, you know, do things. It's not while I'm out and about. It's not while I'm carrying this in my pants pocket. It's not while I'm at the office and trying to do things in one hand and do things in the other. It's not while I'm sort of walking around town and want to take this out of my coat and, you know, I have something else in my hand. all those things would frustrate me because I would have to stop what I'm doing, put whatever's in my hands down, and then use two hands to operate this phone, because it would literally fall. It's fallen out of my hands at least once already trying to use it, and I can't imagine trying to use it outside with one-handed operation, because it just wouldn't work. I mean, it would constantly fall out of my hand. But the point is that I really, really like this phone. I think it is close to, if not the perfect device for me for 2014, 2015 now. And it frustrates me that it's only in 6 inches. And that leads to my second point, is that, uh-oh, here comes the iPhone. All the fanboys are going to get in a rage here because I'm an Apple fanboy. My point with bringing the iPhone is that Apple, in their genius and brilliant marketing and what Apple do best, is they release 2 different phones, but they're inherently sort of the same phone. They released the iPhone 6 Plus and the iPhone 6, and while I don't have a 6 Plus here to show it to you, we can just assume that it's similar in size to the Nexus 6. Point being is that Apple did something with their latest models for 2014, 2015. They have great phones at 2 different sizes, all right, and they're roughly the same price. Google, on the other hand, with Motorola, released one phone that is gigantic with no small counterpart. You know, the only small counterpart to this phone is the Moto X 2014. But the Moto X 2014 sucks. It doesn't have wireless charging. The camera is terrible. The battery is terrible. You can only get it on certain carriers. You know, I mean, granted, sure, you can get it on most carriers. But the point is that the Moto X 2014 is not a Nexus 6 scaled down. It is a totally different phone. This Nexus 6 is a much, much better phone than a Motorola X 2014. And that's really, really infuriating coming from an Android purist, somebody that really wants to use and love the Nexus phone series. Google, come on! I wanted a Nexus 6 in a Nexus 5 build design, in a 5-inch phone, or 5.2-inch phone, or something a little bit more easier to hold on to. And it's disappointing that you guys have let me down. You know, I'm going to have to get rid of this and still use this, a year-old device, because I can't use this phone in one hand. And so I wish they would have done this in either 2 sizes or kept it the same size. You know, there's no reason they couldn't have done it in 2 sizes. They could have done the Motorola Moto X. That could have been the Nexus X, Nexus 6 Mini, and just made it sort of unbranded, stock software, all the great components and features that are in this phone in a smaller package. But they chose not to, and they've alienated me, and I know for sure a lot of other people who enjoy using smaller phones. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I've taken a lot of time in thinking about kind of what I wanted to include in it. And don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube, and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.